Welcome to Door Insider, where we take a deep dive into the mindset, the why, and the how of the industry's top entrepreneurs, leaders, recruiters, and salespeople. We are the Door Nation. Here is your host, Lee Barber. Let's go.
All right, gang. Welcome to Door Insider Season 3. Today's special guest is Sam Mina. Sam is the director of the Great Basin region for Legacy Power. So, Sam, welcome to the show, man.
Lee, thank you for having me a second time, man. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah. So I want to unpack a couple things with you just as your introduction. So we did our original podcast on the original show, right, with Zach Ross?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you came in your Porsche, took Zach for a ride. He fell in love immediately.
And then he ended up getting one.
He did. All of us fell in love with you at that time. So if anybody wants to listen to Sam's original story, go to our old podcast with Zach Ross, and you'll find Sam's kind of how he grew up. Today we're going to focus on Sam's path to progression, personal lessons, and just kind of shoot the shit a little bit. So a few things. How long have you been in door to door?
6 years.
6 years. Started in alarms.
Yes.
And then you were pretty good at alarms, weren't you?
I was all right.
One or two accounts?
All right.
How many did you do? One or three?
340, 350.
Something like that.
Last year.
That's pretty good.
That's all right.
And then you got into solar. Was your first solar company Legacy?
Yes, it was.
And then how long have you been with Legacy Power?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And started as a rep?
Yes.
And then moved into, so obviously a closer, moved up pretty fast just because of the amount of volume that you do and your leadership ability. So what was kind of your path to progression over the last 3 years for Legacy?
It always stems from, just selling. I realized in door to door that sales works for everything, right? Even growing teams. If you're out there consistently outselling everybody else, you get eyeballs, and those eyeballs help grow a region.
Yeah.
So, and then also great partnerships, like my partner Cody. You're gonna have him tomorrow on the podcast.
Yeah.
He's amazing. But it kind of my path to progression was starting as a rep, battling through the sales, and really selling a lot. My first year I sold 160
solars, right?
Solars,
yeah.
Yes, a lot of solars. And the first year we were still reps. We were just out selling and killing it. And then we started recruiting, and it turned into the Vegas office, which turned into the Houston, which turned into Dallas, which turned into another Dallas, which turned into Arizona, and it just kept expanding. And it was all fueled by just a very high culture of sales. So we made sure that we had really high standards for everybody, because we know that we wanted to be the best. So we would just, me and Cody, we would just work the last 2 years more than we ever have. But it's been we did it quicker than most people, which is what we're pretty grateful about. And also a little bit of luck too. It helped, the right people at the right time. And
So I was just taking a couple notes there. There's a few things I wanted to talk about. One was, pull that up just a little bit more. Okay. One was scale, and one was standards. And I think they are very intertwined, man. So, one of the things that I found really challenging, honestly still challenging in my career, is scaling outside of the city. And, in my personal experience, I always saw regionals doing regional stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you're like, oh, how do I scale out to a city? How do I get more teams in other cities? And it's like, when people kind of go past the closer mentality and they go into some form of a leadership role, I think this is one of the things a lot of people think of. In reality, it's actually very difficult. It's like I always call it's like trying to hold together a kinetic sandcastle, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're trying to hold one piece in one city and one piece in another city. So I wanted to talk about how you guys scaled, and I'll preface it a little bit, but I also want to talk about the standards that you set in Vegas, because, I know some of the inside story, but I think that really helped how you scaled. And so, not to take over, but I'll just give you this preface. In my experience, what's really difficult about starting another city is having the right leaders in that city. And so you and Cody obviously scaled out to a few different cities. what I've seen in the industry, not just on my teams, your teams, anybody's teams, is that without the right leadership and core fundamental people in that office, generally 2 people is the best, that have the same standards, that can go out and that can recruit, that can train, can retain. It's really hard to start another office because those people have to be almost as good as you in a lot of the areas that you're good at in running an office.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of unpack, like, what standards did you guys set in the Vegas office, and how did that end up turning into what it's turned into with you guys' region, which is I mean, you guys are doing massive volume, but how did that prerequisite of training and schedule and standards set forth what you guys have created now from that early Vegas office?
So starting off in the Vegas office, it was, you know, it was already it was started, and then we took it over and we grew it. We went from 20 people in the office to, I think at a point we had like 80 in this office.
You guys were doing volume.
Yeah, we were doing volume out of Vegas. And I wouldn't say it would be standards that were set like, hey, you do this is what we have to do, but it was just more a culture of high standards. It was, you know, you had me doing 30 a month, and then you had the other 3 people under doing 25, and then you had the other 3 people under, and it was like consistent heavy hitters throughout the roster, right? And when you have that many, you know, people doing crazy numbers, it's just a culture to do numbers. You sit there and you can't be the guy that only sold 4 last month. Like it just, not that we would reprimand you for it. I mean, we do have, you know, certain minimums.
Take 4, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll take 4, but you know, like it's just at that point and at that momentum that we had in the Vegas office, it kind of just bubbled up and, you know, ended up just exploding because we just had so many people doing really good numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting because back when, you know, also with Zach, we did an interview with Brandon Cottrell, and I've had, you know, opportunities to talk to him over the years as well. And one of the stories that I remember, and this is just another person's paradigm, but I remember him talking about when he first came into the office. And were you there already?
Yeah.
And you were like, you were kind of one of the magical people, but a lot of people were just doing like 3 and 4. And I know that you and Cody are the ones. Well, let's kind of back up, right? Because what happened was Seth was here.
Yeah, Seth was
and
there.
Seth did like 230 installs, made a quick 2.1 million in commission. And then he moves to Utah, and then you and Cody are left to fill in that hole. And what you guys did was amazing, because I remember Brandon's perspective was, hey, if you could come in and do 4, you were doing great. But it was you and Cody's job to change that culture into something where, and the way I described you in correlation today was, if anybody's ever seen, you know, the greyhound races, and there's that rabbit that all the dogs are chasing, Sam's the rabbit, right? He's the one that can go out and do 30 or 50 accounts in a month. So how was that for you, setting up that culture for you and Cody, like getting into Seth's absence and start to create and change that culture? What was it like?
Man, I mean, it was smooth, I guess. It was because I was already used to selling high numbers. I love that. That's what I do. Like it's just, I have a passion for this job, and I guess a part of it, I could say, was it wasn't hard. It was difficult, but it wasn't hard. Like it was, you know, I already was used to it. I was used to selling high numbers, and at that point, me and Cody, well, yeah, I mean, halfway through there we partnered up, but before then we still weren't partners yet. So we, you know, I was out there selling, and we were recruiting, and the recruits would see crazy numbers, and then it compounds over time, you know. So it became, the 4 became 8, and then the 8 became 12, and it was just everyone's doing it, so why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember when Zach was here, this was back when I was running the Arcadia dealership. And, you know, Zach and I were obviously partners on the podcast, and we would always be looking to guys to bring on. And I remember we were looking at your numbers, and it was like, from the dealer program, the problem with the dealer program, one of the problems, in my opinion, with the dealer program, and I loved my years in the dealer program, but I'm happy I'm where I'm at now. But one of the problems is you're kind of on an island, right? Unless you're, you know, going to SolarCon and doing all these other things, you don't really have this perspective of what's actually possible. And I remember, you know, I remember the month that you did 55, and, you know, we're in the dealer program, and, you know, we have guys doing 5, 6, 8, and it's kind of, you know, pretty average for a normal little, you know, 40-person, 30-person office. And seeing your numbers, I remember we were both just like, holy shit. And it reminded me of like my Vivint days when I saw so many more leaderboards where you see guys outselling 300 or, binnings outselling 400 plus alarms in a year, where you're just in this culture and in this vibe with dudes that are just doing massive amounts. So you and Cody partnered up. I'd like to talk about dynamic partnerships a little bit, because that's, in my experience, what makes the best of us the best of us.
Absolutely.
What has that partnership been like for you?
Man, a blessing, absolute blessing. It's just, we figured out our strengths and weaknesses very quickly. And the thing about finding a partner is finding someone that complements your strengths and your weaknesses. And that with Cody was a match made in heaven. Like I'm high ADHD, very hard or very bad at organizing stuff, just really good at going out full blast and just doing one thing. I can do one thing at a time, and I'll do that one thing very well, right? But the thing about dynamic partnerships is I found Cody, and Cody was just the best organizer, structure, systems, processes, everything, and that it intertwined very well. So it ended up becoming me going out, being the white rabbit, selling, recruiting. And actually, what's funny? I am a setter when it comes to recruiting. Yeah, because Cody is the king of that, right?
Processes, man. Cody's brain is
insane.
Yep.
And also not having an ego, right? Not having an ego. Like, I could have very well been like, no, I want to be the closer, and I don't want to close recruits. I'm like, no, like, I understand where my weaknesses are, and I just, why put myself in a spot, in a job that someone else could do better.
So let's talk about that for a minute, man, because one of the things that I found myself training my younger leaders on is the ability to communicate effectively in dynamic partnerships. What I've learned, I did a podcast with Benning, and one of the things that he said is, beyond mountains, there's more mountains. And that's always stuck with me, because it doesn't matter what level, I look at Doug and Luke and I see beyond mountains, there's more mountains. I mean, these dudes are trying to do amazing things. But no matter how long you're in the industry, if you're still growing, there's just mountains past mountains.
Look at Elon Musk right now.
I mean, yeah. So one of the things that I find myself teaching my younger leaders is it's how not to have ego in a dynamic partnership, and how to have crucial conversations. Because I'll see people, get into these partnerships where, from my perspective, they should match, right? One is good at processes and operations. One is good at recruiting. The other one is good at selling, knocking, training, doors. So they each have their own separate things, but they just can't get past the ego and figure out whose lane's whose lane, and then grow in that partnership and add bandwidth. So, what's that experience been like with you and Cody, and like any advice on that type of?
Yeah, I mean, it all stems from trust, right? For starters, it's very hard to partner with someone that you don't trust. And with Cody, like when Seth, how it kind of happened, right? Seth put us in a room and we had no idea what was going on. He just flew us to Utah, both of us, straight up. We had no idea.
That sounds like Seth.
At that point, like we were good friends, but it wasn't like that deep, like partner level, right? Yeah. So he puts us in a room and he's like, I think you should do your work together, and this is why. And like you guys sit here and talk, and he put us in a room for an hour or 2 hours, and we're just sitting there sizing each other up.
Yeah.
And we asked the right questions, and we got to trust was massive, but having the crucial conversations is easy when you have trust, because it's just, first off, titles do not matter, right? The title game is what causes a lot of ego in the industry. No, I want to be called the director. No, I want to be the VP. I want this. Like, who cares? At this point, call me a rep, but just like, let me go do my job.
Let my volume show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in mine and Cody's sense, it was more like we sat, we learned each other a little bit, we figured out why we would mesh well together, and then through the next couple months, we had a lot of crucial conversations, and we started it from the beginning, where we wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have any hesitation with anything or any problems in the business, where we would, for us to be able to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Right. If I messed up, I messed up. Right. Yeah. And I'll go and own it up to Cody. So accountability is the next thing. It's trust, accountability. We are very accountable. And it's to a point where, we'll take blame, even if it's not really, like, it's just like, as a leader, everything's your fault. It's a leader's job, yeah. Right. But that's one massive thing, is a lot of people aren't accountable. A lot of people try to push off like the things that happen, or a sales slump or whatever, on other things. But realistically, it's your fault. You're the leader. 100%. You're the captain of the ship.
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And then having that crucial conversation with a partner quicker will allow you to pivot much faster and be able to get out of whatever is happening. So we learned that quick, and we were like, why would we not like just talk about everything? I talk to Cody every day, every single day. I wake up and I call him.
Yeah.
Right.
So over the years, how long have you guys been together? We've known each other for 3 years, and you've been partners for what, 2 years?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
So you guys have each grown and changed individually. So I guess a few things like, we'll stick on the partnership just for a second, like growing, and that's what I've noticed in my personal life, right? Misty and I in our marriage have grown individually and wanted different things. How has the growth pattern been for you guys over the last 3 years as individuals? And I guess what I'm getting at, what I see a lot in people is principles are action words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means like it even comes down to accountability, like you're saying. If I did something wrong, I need to be accountable for it. But that's a principle. And I'm going to do the right thing when you're not looking. That's a principle.
Mm-hmm.
But dynamic partnerships work for long periods of time because you have people who do have crucial conversations. You do have people who are trustworthy, and people grow. And when people stick in those partnerships and relationships and they do have principles, you start to see their bandwidth expand, and then you start to see megawatts start to expand. And so over the last couple of years, you guys have grown in individuals together and separately doing different things. How has that experience been for you guys?
Amazing. And it's mostly because like we're both mentors to each other. Like I look at Cody as a massive mentor to me.
Yep.
Because I know that any sort of advice or any constructive criticism he gives me comes from a good place. Like he's just trying to help, right? And it also helps that we became best friends over the last couple of years. So we not only, work on the business, but we also help each other become the best version of ourselves in other aspects of life. Like you see Cody with his sweat checks. Congrats to him, by the way. Just a quick shout out. He's lost 20 pounds.
Yeah, he's doing great.
He's doing great. He's been, helping a lot. Just Cody has like changed me as a person entirely just with all the mentorship he's given me. We help each other with fitness. We help each other with just knowledge and good books to read and stuff like that. And we do business together where the person you decide to partner with, make sure that not only is it a business partnership, but it's a good relationship as well. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to do business with someone long term if you don't enjoy their company.
I agree with that. And it's just like a marriage to me. I think one of the problems I see, and I like to talk about this stuff because, I think some problems are common in our industry, and one of the common problems in our industry is the lack of loyalty, in my opinion. And if you're a student of the game and you look back at some of the stuff at Vivint and the Seven, some of those guys, some of the goats in the industry, guys who have just done tremendous things inside the industry and outside the industry. And there's so many other partnerships, but I came from Vivint. But when you look at those are 8, 9, 10, 12, 15-year partnerships. And one of the things I love to talk about is, the amount of loyalty that you have is going to determine the size of problems. And when you think of relationships and partnerships as like, hey, first of all, I love what you said, like make sure you've picked the right person. Can you trust them? Are they honest? Can you have crucial conversations with them? All of those things are important. But when you have found that person, just a shout out to have commitment to those people, to have the crucial conversations, realize that no partnership's going to be perfect, none. And shit's going to hit the fan, and shit's going to be hard, and shit's going to be difficult. But when it is, and you live through principles and you do what's right for your partner, stuff always works out, and you always build bigger gains, in my experience.
Yeah. And again, and I'm going to press on this a lot, but it is insane to be able to trust someone at a level where I could just give him the password to my entire bank account and be like, or he could text me right now and be like, Sam, send me $100,000. Don't worry about it. And I'll be like, sure, sounds good. Boom. Right. It's that level of trust that has definitely been a big factor in our business and the growth. Yeah.
Well, we start dealing with a lot of money, right? I mean, once you, even when you're a closer or you're in, a partner, 2 closers being in a relationship with, as managers for 10 setters. I mean, you start to deal with, you can start dealing with close to $1 million a year between 2 people. That's a lot of money for people. And I think that what we really see is that you see people's personality magnified by the money. I mean, money is a magnifier. and you start to weed out, like, and to me, a big determining factor on how I judge a person is how long they are in relationships. How long are they in relationships with the women in their lives or the men in their lives? How long are they in relationship? How old's their oldest friend? You don't have any friends that are older than, what are your business partnerships? So there's a lot to be said about people who are able to deal with hard things with other human beings. It's been cool to watch you and Cody, and from an outside perspective, Cody can't do what you do and what he does at the same time. Physically impossible. Cody's an operator, right? He just is. Yep. He's a clinician. He has a completely different mind than I do.
Me too.
And it's a fantastic, Misty is my Cody, right? Mm-hmm. I need the same thing in my life that you do. We have different, but watching what you guys do, I love analyzing partnerships. And the thing that I see most prevalent in you guys is Cody can't knock the hours that you knock. He can't go on the blitzes that you go on. He can't run all the hours that he's not the one that's going to. Could he do it if he dropped every single other thing that he was doing? Possibly, yes. Yep. But you need him to do those things to make sure the division goes. And then you couldn't knock and do everything that you're doing. And when I say knock, I mean going out and selling 55 or 60 in a month. You're not really knocking. You're out closing the shit out of deals, leading teams, being a rabbit, being an example for the division. It's not like you're just some schmo. You're literally proving to not only your region but to the division what's possible. And there's really a lot to be said for that, but you couldn't operate like Cody operates. And so, one of the things that I've learned is John Maxwell in 21 Irrefutable Laws says, stop trying to be good at the things you're not good at. You're never going to enjoy those things. Just be good at what you're good at. And one of the things that I'm really good at, I'm probably good at, 3 or 4 things like you, right?
It's the sales guys.
One of the things that I'm really good at is knowing what I'm not good at and then surrounding myself with the people that are good at those things.
It's a cheat code to life when you know that.
It is, yeah. So what have the last couple years been like for you, man? I mean, I've known you for a couple years now. I've seen you grow. As I've grown, man, if you're in this game, man, you should be growing as a human being. But what have the last couple of years of experience has been like for you, going from, your first year in Legacy into regional, into director, putting together blitzes, going out and working the shit out of hours and just knocking the shit out of doors, moving from Vegas to Texas? Like, what is your life changed from and into?
It's that's a good question. It's just been a lot. It's been a lot. Starting in Vegas and then moving to Dallas and growing and then also blitzing halfway through the whole entire time, every other month, and just I find peace within chaos. And like my girlfriend may think differently because we move a lot, right? And I'm the one that, like, my whole life I've moved every year, and I thought that was normal for people. Guess not. There's I think it's normal every year to switch spots and move somewhere else. But then again, that comes from the door-to-door world, right? But to answer your question, I feel like I lived my 20s, 30s, and 40s in the last 3 years. I feel 43 with 2 kids right now. I turned 25 in a couple days.
I hope you don't have any kids running around out there.
Hopefully not.
What have the ups and downs been like? I mean, we talk about the peaks and valleys in and it's mountains beyond mountains, right?
Yeah.
Like, what have the ups and downs been like for you? What are some of the challenges that you faced over the last couple of years?
Oh, dude, the last couple of years have been brutal, but I guess that's just business in general. But the solar industry, it's not just like the same issues everyone's dealt with the last couple of years, but big ones were when we had to switch installers last year, switching different sales programs, having the entire region have to relearn a new sales program, switching banks. Just all the change is hard when you're changing and moving 200 to 300 people at once. Yeah. Right. And then, old dog, new tricks. Like, I am the worst to adapt, which I hate. But, like, I still, if I had to switch from the proposal service I've used the last 3 years, it would take me at least 2 months to figure it out. Because I when I figure out a process, I do it the same way for forever. But it's just been a lot of hurdles, we've had offices we started, disband, we've had, installer changes, we've had just a lot of stuff. But the thing is, I mean, it's business. If you get into business to not deal with problems, you're in for a rude awakening, because business is 90% problems and 10% just solving.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person that grows the quickest will be the person that is the best at problem solving and fixing issues quickly. It's the OODA loop. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
It's the OODA loop. I heard it from Alex Hormozy. I watch this dude all the time.
Yeah.
But it's
I love Hormozy.
the speed at which an idea becomes a thing, right? And the quicker
What's
you
it called? An OODA loop?
OODA loop.
OODA loop?
It's like UDU loop,
OODA loop.
right? It's the quicker you can get your OODA loop, the better you will be at life and at business and at everything. So like an example, right? I was watching Grant Cardone and he's like, I had this idea, I texted my team, and within 2 hours we had a website built and it was already selling. That's a fast OODA loop. That's 2 hours from
It's
idea to
ideas
business.
into action.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just getting our OODA loops quicker. And I felt that over the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago, certain changes that we would have to make would take a lot longer than now, and that's just because experience. Like we've been bonked on the head long enough to where it doesn't hurt as much, and we can recover quicker.
So I love that OODA loop. I love Hormozy too, man.
Yeah,
I geek
awesome.
out with that. The thing he has on his nose all the time though. I'm like, you could do videos without that, bro. But so one of the questions that I have for you, I think people may find this interesting, is like, what have been some of the biggest hurdles with starting offices? So you guys have started quite a few offices, different states. You've done an amazing job. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love watching you guys because it gives me path to progression, like we were talking about before the show. I'm a fan of the game, man. I love watching what other people are doing successful and also where they failed, because that helps me learn. So what have been some of the challenges for you in getting other offices, remote offices, started in different cities, and then keeping those going? Because I'm familiar with you guys' region. I know you guys have had teams that are have been doing great, that aren't doing great, that started off not doing great, that turned into great. It's just teams. It's not you. It's just part of the game. But what have been some of the challenges in starting teams in other states that you've experienced?
Leadership. I mean, that's one thing, is finding the right people to run these offices, because the bodies, this is an amazing opportunity. Like it's not hard to find people that want to go and make life-changing money selling solar. It's finding the people that can manage other people, which that's the hard part. But we have the same process every time. If we're not recruiting an office that's already built, right, we're growing out of an existing office we have and then branching off when the time is right. So we skip a lot of the hurdles people have with beginning momentum and stuff like that, because we'll be all in one office, just like Vegas. Vegas became 3 offices because we waited, finger on the trigger. We were waiting until we can make sure these are self-sufficient before we put them remote into a different state. Yeah. Right. So it's you know, it's slow and calculated, right? Instead of going and saying, hey, go start in whatever state and, you know, recruit your bodies. Here's 5 people, here's 10 people, and go. Now you have to wait for the momentum to catch. You have to wait for the culture to start. And then you know, that takes some time and then also recruiting actually is a lot harder in an office that's smaller. Because someone walks in, they're like, oh, there's 6 people here.
Yeah. Sitting through correlation with 5 or 6 people is like, shoot me.
Yeah, shoot me. So when you have 40 people, it helps bring bodies a lot better and easier, and people buy in more because they're like, holy, I'm a part of something, right? So anytime we go and start a new office, it's not, hey, let's go get someone in that state, let's do this. Let's go into one of our existing offices, grow an office out of that office, and then boom, relocate everyone to this state. Yeah. And that the OODA loop becomes quicker once they're in the state, because I don't know, they already have the momentum. They've already been selling in this other state. The office already has unity. They already have a culture. It's just boom.
Yeah, what I see, I mean, you know, the game is just the game, right? It's like any other game, like football or basketball. You can just see how teams operate and move. One of the things I see is a lot of people, they think the job of leadership is easy. They think recruiting is easy. They think training is easy. They think maintaining people is easy. They think running an office is easy. They think running correlation is easy. And you'll have these people that don't even understand the power of dynamic partnerships or needing a partner to do these things, or that the challenges that come from running teams, and you just start to see people like face these hurdles. So I love that idea of, and I found that challenging. You know, it's like when I think of the different offices, I'm like, okay, who would actually move? Like, and that can be a challenge. And it's, you know, I think what I've learned is almost exactly what you're saying, is that making sure that when I do start an office somewhere else, I have the correct leadership that understand a majority of the job, right? And to quote Maxwell again, if somebody can do it 80% as well as me, they should be doing it, but making sure that they can recruit 80% as well as me, making sure that they can run correlation 80% as well as me, making sure that they can knock doors. And those are hard traits to find in other people, because most people think that they can do it, but when you put them on the court, they can't actually move the ball down the field.
Yeah, people think the hard part of this job is knocking.
Yeah. It's the easiest part of the job.
Easiest part of the job.
Yeah.
Managing is where it's a lot more difficult.
So what has this year been like for you, and what is the rest of the year? Where's Sam at? What has this year been like? What are goals? What are you looking at?
I'm at a point where I'm trying to still keep personal sales volume high, while transitioning into working on the business instead of in the business, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
My goal is to sell a boatload of accounts this year, just like normal, but as well as open up different parts of the region. So like we started opening up a blitz model, and now we have 2 blitz teams, and we started that, and then now we're opening up a virtual model, which is going to be all virtual. Like I'm trying to do both and grow, and also at the same time get better at my weaknesses. Like a big weakness for me is public speaking. I'm just putting myself more and more in those uncomfortable situations of having to go and public speak, because I noticed that the more I do it, the better I get. Running correlations, that's another thing. I just ran correlation with you guys, and I'll tell you what, Manny, to this day I still hyperventilate before walking into a correlation to do a training. I sit there like anxious, right? But I know that the more I put myself in these uncomfortable situations, the better I'll be, right? So it's a mixture of selling, growing our business, but opening up different avenues of it, so we have a better offering. Like it's cool to be able to, someone that maybe isn't able to go knock a door, to be able to tell them, hey, we have Zoom calls that you could do, or someone that maybe doesn't live in a market that we have an office in, hey, you could do a blitz model. It's just bettering the overall value proposition of the region.
I love that,
as well as getting better at my weaknesses.
I love that. So one of the things that we've been talking about is you're starting to step up the social media advertising game, which I love. It's funny because I went to SolarCon, and one of the, there was just a litany of different people speaking. Great show. I actually really enjoyed SolarCon. It was the first time I went. But there was just a litany of different people, and you see the expansion and growth of people when they really get into marketing. When you stop thinking of social media as a place to show your breakfast or just somewhere to scroll, and you start to thinking of it for what it is for marketing. One of the interesting things that I incurred was, and I don't push out quite as much content as I should anymore. I should get back into it a little bit. It's, like teeter-totters, right? I start focusing on another thing. But one of the things that I started noticing in my personal career was that I would do a video, and then I would be in Texas at a recruiting meeting with somebody from another company, and they had watched my videos. And my videos would have, 50 or 100 or 110 hearts. And then I would look on there, and there's nothing special, guys. I'm nothing special. But we would get 7, 8, 9, 10, sometimes 15,000 views, meaning that, with the hashtags and everything, that was pushing out to other people in the industry. So it was this kind of in fires, they have what's called radiant heat, meaning the fire's in one place and the wind is blowing the heat, and it's lighting something on fire 300 or 400 yards away. And so the social media marketing, in my experience, has been almost like radiant heat, right? It gives me that exposure. So I see you are starting to, take that really seriously and get into that. What's your kind of perspective on that? What's that experience been like so far?
It's been something that I've been trying to do for years, and it's funny because I bet a lot of people are going to resonate with this. I've been wanting to get into, videos and just being more online, but I just never had the willpower to pick up the camera.
Yeah.
It took years to be able to get that willpower, and that not even willpower, just courage in a way, because you
feel embarrassed.
You're embarrassed. The first time in front of camera is weird. What
do I say?
You feel like people are judging you, and in reality, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah,
and if they do, you shouldn't care.
Who cares? Yeah,
who cares?
I mean, for me, the coolest part is being able, what kind of was the breaking point for me to be able to actually say, hey, I'm going to start doing this, was just the vision of 20 years from now having so much content that I can literally relive my whole last 20 years of life just through the videos I've created.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, it's funny. So Hermosi, I actually did a correlation off this once. Hermosi did a video, and he has one of the top ranking podcasts, to my deficit. It's not one that I've listened to.
It's amazing. You should listen to it.
I will now. But he was, and I love his like little, I get a lot of information from like 10 to 20 minute clips of people talking about a certain topic, because I can kind of pick it apart and relate to what they were talking about. But what Hermosi was talking about was his podcast. And he's like, he had a buddy come to him and say, hey, I've been doing this podcast and I've been posting and like, I'm not number one. He's like, dude, you've been doing this for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. He's like, I've had my podcast for 5 years and I've been posting content almost every day, every week. Yeah. And now I have one of the top ranking podcasts. And so I had Andy Elliott in here and it was a trip, dude. So he goes, do you know how I did it? This was his secret. Hopefully he doesn't get mad at me. The secret was, he goes, what I did was I got on my phone right here like this and I Googled how to sell cars, questions car salesmen need to know. And what would happen is, I'll just do it real quick on the podcast. How to sales pitch. What's a good sales pitch for cars? And then what he does was Google would come back with this, right? And it would give him the sales pitch for cars. And then just do it. Just say, what's the best sales pitch for solar? And then click, let me stop my microphone. And then click what it is. And Google will drop down all of the questions.
Oh, yeah, before you click search, huh?
Yep. And then so just like right here, now down here, it comes in with all these questions from Google, these. And so what he would, and I swear to God, this is what Andy Elliott did. So he goes, I would just do that, and then I would pick this topic, and then I would make a 5-minute video of that topic, and I would title the video that topic. And he posted those every 7 days. And I'm like, Andy, he's like, and I don't know if you've heard Andy, he's like, every day. And I'm like, okay, so for sure every day. And what Google started doing was the SEO would track what it said on his video to what the Google search was for the top answered questions on how to do that. And they would start linking his videos for SEO to those questions. And over years, that's how he got all of the views that tens and tens of thousands of views. But it was the compound effect of marketing. And when you look at like marketing from my angle, and it's funny you said it, because so I actually when I bought my car, I bought my car video. This is, what you do. Like, I got a new car, I got a new watch video. It's like, it's what you do for like marketing. You mix them up, right? Yeah. And I had this, actually some people here in Las Vegas do a parody of my video, like making fun of it.
No way.
And I'm like, it's funny. You're actually making fun of me for trying to market and be professional, and that's all the game that you got. But what I took away from it was it can't matter, right? Like, don't be embarrassed.
It's publicity.
Pick up the phone, do a video of yourself, start getting on. This is just a shout out to people. You have to start getting known, get your thoughts out on camera, because you're not going to get good at it until you get good at it. And when we look at people like Andy Elliott's killing it. Brad Lee killing it. These guys have just been practicing uploading content for, just years, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what's cool though, we were talking about Alex Hormozi in the podcast. So a lot of the stuff that perspective shifts I've had in the last year was listening to that podcast, because he presses a lot on there's no way to fail if you just do it long enough. Right. And the short-term failures don't hurt as much or sting as much anymore, because I know that I'm not stopping anytime soon. And if you don't stop, you'll never fail. And if you do something for a long enough period of time with delayed gratification, you will always win.
I love that.
Always.
Yeah.
So taking that and then also organizing the pieces of my business, like he has this analogy where he looks at business as a bucket with a faucet over it dripping water every second. And your bucket, when you first start off your business, has a lot of holes in it, and the water just seeps through, right? And in our business, the holes are sales ability, recruiting, all these different things that are a part of our job. And our job as business owners is to just patch up the holes, right? So we're patching up, getting good at the pitch, and then patching the whole of being good at recruiting, and then patching the whole of belief, because you got to believe that this stuff is awesome, and then patching this. And after a certain time, if you keep patching enough holes, you will eventually have a perfect bucket where the water overflows. And that's a really cool analogy that stuck with me a year or two ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I love that, and it's true. I think that, and I talk to, especially my team members all the time, but it's just true. The only people that I've really seen fail at this job or this career are people that quit. I mean, we have some, pretty cool. I mean, John Soriano out in California started as a setter.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the dude started from not any offense against John, but I heard he wasn't a great setter at all. But over time, he's come to be one of the biggest parts of Legacy. And it's just the same thing. Like he, not quitting on yourself. And like a lot of what we're teaching in ourselves and learning in this industry and then teaching other people as leaders, we're teaching different levels of maturity and like understanding this perspective of like the bucket and helping somebody like guide themselves through patching that bucket up to where they can start to fill their individual bucket. I love that. It's a really good analogy. Like, and then the shout out is just don't quit, man. If you just don't quit, the compound effect takes hold of you and the bucket's gonna fill up.
No, when you realize that you can reach all your goals and be successful and be rich and be healthy and have a great family and all this stuff.
Yeah.
If you could do it with any business, like anything. I have a buddy that sells buttons that makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Like it's
buttons,
like buttons for t-shirts, like
really?
like the button on your polo right now.
Yeah.
Like imagine thinking I'm going to start a button business and I'm going to make it big, right? When you realize that you can succeed at anything if you just do it long enough, you kind of become invincible in life because there's nothing that life can throw at you that you can't take because you know that you're on a longer mission.
So I vibe with this conversation. So where are we at? We got a few minutes. So we've talked about dynamic partnerships. Let's talk about leadership for guys like us. What's Seth, Cam, Doug, Luke. Let's talk about Seth and Cam and your experience with them as so Seth, obviously the vice president, Notorious Division. We're all enveloped in the Notorious Division. What's your perspective been from having Seth and Cam and man, I love Cam. I love them both. They just both do to me, but I want to get your perspective on, because to me it's being in the right room with the right people in the right car, going fast enough with people that I trust and love that can direct me when I'm steering off the road.
Yeah.
But what has your experience been with the type of leadership that we have and the guys that we're surrounded with?
I love that they don't lead everyone the same way, and they know how to learn someone and how to lead them. Because with me, like, I learned at a very young age that I am not good with being micromanaged and or I guess quote unquote bossed around. Yeah. Right. So the way, if you get good enough people for the job, you don't have to micromanage them. And it's actually bad to micromanage someone that's counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because you usually want to get at someone that's at a high level at anything, give them free reign, and then if they just mess up, give them bumpers to make sure they don't fall off, So that's what they did with us, and they mentor us, they give us a lot of insight on certain problems in the business, and but they're also like, they let us do our thing. They never make us do stuff with our it's just like, we trust you guys, do it, we're here in case you need any help. And that style of leadership resonated with me very well, because that's actually why I got into door-to-door in general. I got fired from all of my previous jobs because I could not have someone you go do this, right? And then coming into door-to-door, I realized, wow, like, we are really our own bosses. And then coming into our leadership, they believe that, and they give us the free reign to be able to make our own decisions. And that's why a part of the reason we've grown so fast is we have been able to not be micromanaged, and they trust us enough to be able to do that.
I vibe with that, dude. So it's a funny story. When I was coming, I had the Arcadia dealership, and Misty and I had put years into that. And that was, we were running our own business. Because in the dealer program, we were doing everything. And at the, even the volume that we were doing, it's a lot of work for two people. It's really a lot we were the business owners. Like, we didn't have legacy backends department, legacy marketing, it was us. Like, we were doing everything. And I had this fear, right? I was like, I don't want a boss. Like, I don't want, like, is Seth gonna be my, like, he's my one of my best friends, but I don't want my best friend to be my boss. And then is Doug and Luke gonna tell me? And that's what I've loved too, is that kind of free reign of like, and that's that's was the call out. Like, we're not looking for people to boss around. We're looking for people that can come in and add bandwidth and leadership and creativity. And so I vibe with that. And I was just, when you were saying that, that's what I love about them too. When I was saying that, was like, I'm a lot like Seth in leadership. Like, if you need me, call me. I'm not going to call you every day as one of my leaders and baby me. And I love watching Cody, because sometimes I'm like, I need more Cody, because Cody, like,
Cody calls.
He calls everybody. And I'm like, he does call him like every day. And like, I've tried it. I'm like, okay, this is why I like, being in a room with different types of people. Cause I'm like, okay, this week I'm going to try and be more like Cody, and I'm going to try and do that. And it stresses me out, dude. I'm like, I got to call my guys every day. Like, I feel like I'm going to bug them, and like, just call me if you need. So it's cool because we get to see these different leadership styles. Seth, Cam, Cody, you, me, like, Austin, Morgan, just some of the dope ass leaders that we have in the region. But yeah, for me, it's really been the same with them. Like, I love, they're inspirational. They, I get to watch each of them walk different mental and spiritual paths, go through different growths themselves. They're both inspiring humans. So it's been cool for me too.
Great people.
Legacy, man. Why Legacy? What's the, and guys, just so me and Sam both work at Legacy, so this isn't a Legacy plug. If you work where you work, I love where you work, and I want you to love where you work. But I do want to talk about, it is important for, I think, each of us in the industry to consider why we are where we are, and why where we are is important to us, and why we've attached our horse to that cart wherever you work. The call out on this and the challenge is, make sure that you love where you work. So what is your why? What makes you love Legacy? Commit your life to it.
Well, for starters, I just want to get into this avenue because there's a lot of people in the solar world that bounce around a lot. It's red lines and this and that and the other, right? You will be in a better position regardless of the company if you plant your flag and stay there a long period of time.
Yeah.
I can't wait till people realize that. But now, why Legacy? Couple different reasons. I truly believe we have the best value proposition in the industry. The people, I like to be able to look at, the people I work under and fully trust them and know that they're operating out of my best interest, and not just, looking at me as a number sign, dollar sign. And just the overall culture, man. It's just the Legacy does it big, like everything to the events, to the competitions, to the production that we see, like that we have the heaviest hitters in the industry under an umbrella. In the beginning of business, you look at numbers, like you look at financials, like what is going to be the lowest red line, or where will I make the most money? And then at the second level, you look at people. You're like, can I work in unison with these people? That's more important. I would, any day of the week, take less pay and better people to work with and grow around than more pay and shitheads, for lack of a better word. So that's why Legacy. I mean, aside from that, also just I haven't gone on it yet, but I do love that we got a foundation trip.
We do.
It's in Thailand, I think, this year.
So can I give you a hint?
Okay.
So I'm gonna cop to something.
Okay. What?
I'm a big dude. I'm 260. I look fit, but I'm a shit show, Sam. I got a replaced hip, 2 shoulder surgeries, bad back. I'm like, dude, I'm going to show up to one of these trips and everybody's going to be digging shovels and stuff, and I'm going to be sitting over on the side with a water hose. It's going to be embarrassing. And the other thing was, I don't want to sit on a plane for like 15 hours. So I was talking to John Soriano. He's like, dude, upgrade your flight to the lay down one. But so that was just a funny little, I vibe with what you're saying. I think that here's what I've learned in my 7 years in the industry. And Benning said this too. What your red line does not equate to what's in your bank account. Yep. And I have a higher red line than a lot of the people that I know, and I make way more money because I'm doing volume. And what people don't realize is that your red line, it's the reason it doesn't equate to what's in your, and this isn't, again, this is just my perspective on the industry. Your red line doesn't equate to what's in your bank account because people fail to realize the ecosystem of what we do, right? It's a whole person paradigm. And it doesn't, because you can have the lowest red line with crappy installations, with bad customer experiences, with customers calling the people on your team over and over and over and complaining and bad reviews and all of this nasty stuff happening. And then now you've gotten this really low red line and you think you're going to make great money and you've recruited 10 people, but none of the 10 people are happy. And then you become disenfranchised because your reps aren't happy, you're not happy, your homeowners aren't happy, stuff's not getting installed, it's getting stalled, it's taken away because there's bad reviews and blah, 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 blah. And you go and you do this for a year and you realize like, oh wow, I thought I was getting this low red line, but it didn't equate to more money in my bank account because of so many negative things happening in that ecosystem.
Sounds familiar, Lee.
It does sound familiar. I mean, it's, so, like what I've learned is, and this is kind of why I asked you why legacy is like for anybody, if, it's the money's important, but in my estimation of the industry, I think a lot of people have their priorities incorrect, right? And looking for a company, looking for somewhere to attach your horse to the wagon, right? It should be people, and it should be trust, and it should be the company. Like, do I trust the company? Do I trust the people that work at the company? Do I trust the track record of the company? Do I trust the direction? Do I trust where they're going? Do I trust what they do with money? Do they have clean books? Do I feel like they're recruiting me based on honesty and integrity? Do I feel like when problems occur, because problems are going to occur, I'm dealing with people that I can have crucial conversations to? Am I dealing with looking at a company that has a good brand? That has a good culture? Because culture is not the shirt or the hat, right? I have a quote from Damon Price, but he basically says, culture is the wins and losses of the team together, how they love together, how they act together, what their achievements are together, like how they play on the field. That creates culture. Yeah. And I think if you change your paradigm from money first, red line first, because I get on recruiting calls and they're like, what's your red line? And I'm
before
like,
the conversation.
We're done.
Yep,
like,
done.
Go hit up, go over there. I don't want to work with you, because if that's your main priority, it's like, getting into a relationship with a woman who's cheated on her last 5 boyfriends. Like, I'm good. That's not who I'm looking for. I want somebody who has their priorities straight. And so it's just been an interesting thing for me to watch different people in my current position in the industry. Is like, I focus a lot on recruiting. So I get to have a lot of these human interactions where I'm like, and I love it when people have their priorities right. Who's the company? Who's the owners? Who's the VPs? How do you guys act? What's the culture? What are the competitions? What can we do for volume? What's the technology? And then what's the red line? Because they realize like, oh, that's how you scale.
Yep.
And if you want to do 5 accounts a month
and make a bunch of money on those accounts,
go get the lowest red line.
There you go.
If you want to make a million or $500,000 or $750,000 a year, $1 million plus a year, you need to go somewhere where you can scale. You have to think of that. And Legacy's not the only. I'm not saying
for sure.
There's some other really good companies out there, but this for me, because we're just shooting the shit, is like I just see so many people with the incorrect priorities when they're going looking for. That's like saying, hey, what I want the hottest chick there is or the hottest guy there is for the females. I don't care if he's cheated on the last 4 people. None of that's relevant as long as he's really good. Or she's really good looking. That's a really stupid way to approach that relationship.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like it starts from the rep up, right? So, you get a lot of people that, and I'll add another piece of why legacy after this, but it's just, you like you said, you get on a recruiting call, they're like, what's the red line, right? And then companies have to adapt to that question. And there's certain companies that aren't like you, or you're just like, you know what? No, like I have my own principles that I recruit off of. But a lot of companies will adapt, like kind of work around these type of people and actually, play the cash grab game, which is very short-sighted. And let's just try to make as much money as possible the next 5 years, right? That's what a lot of solar companies are operating like. And it's crazy. It's like they don't have a 20, 30, 40-year vision. Another reason why legacy is and this is like a handful of companies in the industry, I can comfortably and confidently say that legacy will be here for the long run, and I can actually grow a career here for the next 20, 30 years.
I agree with that.
They're not going anywhere. And that's the biggest thing. That's over red line for me, because if 1.9 red line versus an extra 15 years of my career in one company, compounding over time, you make much more everything, success, money, relation, everything over the larger time frame with maybe a little bit of a higher red line.
Well, and I agree, and it's like I think another place that people really get short-sighted is the development of relationships, right? It's like, why is it so important? And so listen, in almost everything I do, I use a lot of metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at when I looked at picking a wife, right, Misty. When I started dating Misty, I had certain things. I had come to a point in my life. I was mature enough. There were certain things that were very important to me that were deal breakers in a woman, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was important to me that she was into fitness. It was important to me that she cared how she looked. It was important to me that she was intelligent. It was important to me that she was well thought. For me, I don't drink alcohol. I don't want to be around this is me personally. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
It was important for me to be with a woman that didn't drink alcohol. It was important for me to be a woman who had responsibility, who cared, who took. There was just so many things, that, and so when I'm setting off on that journey, that's the kind of person, because I know I'm going to be in that relationship for a long. It's the same with work.
Mm-hmm.
The same things go into these things, and the short-sightedness of people, in my experience, is they don't realize. I mean, listen. Let's talk about Casey Baugh, Jeff Mendez, Bodie Gardner. Bodie recruited those two, and eventually those two worked their way up into VP positions with
Mm-hmm.
Bodie. But over 10 plus years of those relationships, and I can guarantee you that all of those were not great years. But through that partnership, now those guys are doing just crazy, crazy, amazing things. But that's the compound effect of, first of all, being attached to Vivint. I think we can all agree Vivint Alarms they're going to be here. I mean, TP created a company that they're going to be around, right? So they all tied themselves to a company that was legit, that's going to be there for 10, 15, 20 plus years. And then they understood the power of those relationships. And the joke back in the day, and you were in Alarms, was, the Vivint guys don't get paid that much.
Yeah.
But a lot of us were making more money than other guys that were getting paid less because we were doing more volume. And so it's like, when I look at the game, the game is the game, man. It's just like any other sport. When you look at these things, these are the things that are powerfully underestimated in our industry, in my opinion. It's what are the values of the company? What are the values of the people? How long can I be in those relationships, and how much can I build, as opposed to what's the cheapest red line and the fastest money that I can get, because that's short-lived.
Yeah, that's why in this industry, man, it's just, there's a lot of the betrayal. There's a lot of companies not paying people. There's a lot of managers not following through on promises to reps. There's a lot of all of that. And people don't realize the superpower that you get from being an overall honorable person.
Yeah.
Someone that follows through on your promises. Someone that, like, here's an example. And this is kind of what solidified mine and Cody's partnership. And this is something so minor, but it's like one of those things. I had a customer that I sat with. This was like when I first started solar. I sat with him. He didn't close. And then there was a setter with that deal, right? 4 months later, I got the guy to actually close, and Cody was with that setter at the time. I went and called the setter, and I said, hey, I just got him closed. Everything's great. And Cody was just like, dude, you didn't, like, most people wouldn't even have called the guy and let him know that deal closed 4 months later. Like, you could have very easily just put that in your pocket, and no one would have ever noticed.
Yeah.
And I told him, dude, it's not about the money. It's about the honor. It's about, I will look at myself differently in the mirror if I took that money. And some people need to operate at that level of honor, and they will realize that life becomes much, much easier. You get better relationships. You make more money when you're a good person. Crazy.
It's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, listen, we're at 58 minutes. I do not always so good at keeping these on time. It's been really, great having you on. We had you did correlation today. Went through 7 dope closes: the now or never close, the summary close, the sharp angle close, question close, the assumption close, the takeaway close, and the soft close. And then you spoke about Way of the Wolf and the development of your intuition. So you're on your socials game. I know what kind of human being you are. You're a giver. If anybody out in the industry that's listening to this has questions for you or on any of these closes or needs advice, where do they find you on socials?
My Instagram.
What is it?
Sam, Y-E-O-O, Samyo.
Samyo.
Yeah, shoot me a DM. I always respond. I the more value you give, the more you get.
Yeah. I have a lot of people that I talk to and work with in other companies. It's not, I don't, the one of the, I have a kid that works at Vivint that goes to my gym, and he's always talking to me about other stuff. And I'm like, bro, you're with great people at Vivint. Stay with Vivint. Let's talk. You want some advice? So what I love is just giving away advice and being part of the solution for people. So if anybody, Sam's got some great advice. Reach out to him on Instagram. Hit him up. He'll be tagged here in the IG. Thank you for coming into Vegas, doing a banging ass correlation. Anybody that's familiar with the Door to Door Insider YouTube will have Sam's correlation up on there in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks. He'll probably post some of that on his own Instagram. So one more time, where do they find you? Sammy O?
Sammy O, SAMYEOO on Instagram. Thank you for having me, Lee.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in, brother. It's been a good show.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.